The Awakening Storm. The galaxy had been bleeding for 800 years. Every star system knew the sound of war engines screaming through the void. Every planet understood the terror of orbital bombardment. And every species had chosen a side in the endless conflict between the Zephyrian Empire and the Kalos Federation. The two galactic superpowers had turned space itself into a battlefield, their hatred burning brighter than the stars they fought over. In the chrome-plated war rooms of the Zephyrian capital ship Dominator, Admiral Vex studied the holographic display with his 4 golden eyes. The war had reached a stalemate that threatened to consume every inhabited world in the galaxy. His people, the Zephyrians, were master strategists with crystalline exoskeletons that could deflect energy weapons, but even they were running out of soldiers. Across the void, he knew the Kalos Federation faced the same problem. Their shape-shifting warriors and quantum technology were formidable, but numbers were numbers, and both sides were bleeding dry. Admiral, his intelligence officer approached with respectful caution. Our deep space scouts have discovered something interesting in the Outer Rim territories. Vex turned his massive frame toward the younger officer. Speak quickly, Lieutenant Zora. I have 3 battle fronts to coordinate before the next cycle. A small blue planet in an isolated system called Sol, sir. Initial scans show a primitive civilization called humans. They appear to be in their early space age, barely capable of reaching their own moon. Population approximately 8 billion, divided into separate nations that frequently engage in small-scale conflicts among themselves. The Admiral's interest sparked. Primitive species often made excellent soldiers when properly motivated. They fought with desperation that more advanced civilizations had forgotten. Military capabilities. Laudable, sir. They use chemical-based projectile weapons and primitive aircraft. Their most advanced spacecraft are tiny metal shells that can barely survive in their own atmosphere. They seem completely unaware that they're not alone in the universe. Admiral Vex felt something resembling satisfaction ripple through his exoskeleton. After centuries of fighting the technologically advanced Kalos, the idea of recruiting a species that could be easily controlled appealed to him greatly. Prepare a diplomatic mission. We'll offer them protection in exchange for military service. Frame it as an honor. Meanwhile, in a secret facility buried 3 miles beneath the Rockies on Earth, Commander Sarah Chen reviewed the same intelligence reports that the Zephyrians believed were secret. Her dark eyes reflected the glow of dozens of holographic displays showing Zephyrian ship movements throughout the galaxy. The underground bunker buzzed with activity as hundreds of technicians monitored alien communications across 17 different frequency bands. Sarah had been preparing for this moment her entire adult life. At 35, she commanded the most classified military organization in human history, the Underground Coalition. While the surface world believed humanity was alone in the universe, Sarah and her team had been tracking galactic civilization for over 40 years, ever since the first alien probe had been detected entering the solar system in 2085. Commander, her chief analyst Dr. Marcus Webb called from his station. The Zephyrian diplomatic vessel has entered our solar system. ETA to Earth orbit is 6 hours, 17 minutes. Sarah nodded calmly. Signal Phase 1 to all stations. It's time to wake up the sleeping giant. Across Earth, hidden facilities that appeared to be ordinary research stations or abandoned industrial sites suddenly came alive. In the Sahara Desert, massive blast doors opened to reveal spacecraft hangars carved from solid rock. Beneath the Antarctic ice, nuclear reactors that had been dormant for decades began powering up advanced manufacturing systems. In orbit, what appeared to be communication satellites slowly unfolded into weapons platforms that had been waiting patiently for this exact moment. The Zephyrian diplomatic ship, a sleek vessel the size of a city block, descended through Earth's atmosphere with all the arrogance of a superior civilization making contact with primitives. Admiral Vex himself had come to personally oversee this recruitment operation, confident that these humans would be so awed by alien technology that they would eagerly serve as cannon fodder in exchange for advanced weapons. The ship landed in a field outside Geneva, Switzerland, where Earth's major world leaders had hastily assembled. President Martins of the Americas Union, Chancellor Kim of the Asian Federation, and Prime Minister Jackson of the European Alliance stood nervously as the alien vessel's boarding ramp extended with a soft hiss of hydraulics. Admiral Vex emerged first, his towering form impressive in the Earth's sunlight. His crystalline armor reflected the sky like a living prism, and his 4 golden eyes swept over the assembled humans with barely concealed disdain. Behind him came a retinue of smaller Zephyrian officers, their weapons clearly visible but supposedly ceremonial. "Greetings, humans," Vex's voice boomed through a translation device that rendered his words in perfect English. "I am Admiral Vex of the Zephyrian Empire. We come bearing great news. Your world has been chosen to join the greatest conflict in galactic history." President Martinez stepped forward, her hands visibly shaking. The performance was flawless. We welcome you to Earth, Admiral. We had no idea we weren't alone in the universe. Your ignorance is expected," Vex replied with casual condescension. "Your species shows promise despite its primitive nature. We offer you the chance to serve alongside the Zephyrian Empire in our righteous war against the Kalos Federation. In exchange, we will provide you with technology beyond your current understanding and protection from other hostile species." Chancellor Kim played his part perfectly, stepping forward with apparent eagerness. "What would you require of us, Admiral?" "Military service. Your species appears naturally aggressive, judging by your constant small-scale conflicts. We can harness that aggression for a greater purpose. You will provide soldiers for our war effort. In return, your world will be spared and elevated to a higher level of civilization." The world leaders exchanged glances that seemed fearful, but were actually carefully choreographed. Prime Minister Jackson spoke with a trembling voice that was entirely acted. "How many soldiers would you need?" "Initially, 50,000 of your finest warriors. If they prove adequate, we may require more." Vex gestured dismissively, as if discussing livestock rather than human beings. "Do not worry about their survival. War is the crucible in which inferior species either prove their worth or are naturally eliminated." President Martinez nodded with apparent reluctance. We need time to discuss this with our people, Admiral." "You have 72 of your hours," Vex declared. "Prepare your warriors. We will return to collect them, and then you will see what real civilization looks like." As the Zephyrian ship departed, the world leaders maintained their facade of fear and uncertainty until the vessel disappeared beyond the horizon. Only then did President Martinez allow herself a small smile as she activated a secure communication device. "Phase 1 complete, Commander Chen." They took the bait perfectly. 3 days later, 50,000 human volunteers assembled at designated staging areas around the globe. To Zephyrian observers monitoring from orbit, they appeared to be exactly what was expected: primitive soldiers with basic equipment and minimal training. They carried conventional firearms, wore simple combat gear, and seemed appropriately nervous about their upcoming deployment to an alien war zone. What the Zephyrians couldn't detect were the nanoscale enhancements flowing through each volunteer's bloodstream, the quantum communication devices embedded in their equipment, or the advanced training each had received in virtual reality environments that simulated every known alien battlefield tactic. These weren't desperate volunteers. They were Earth's finest special operations soldiers, each one worth a dozen alien warriors, but disguised to look like frightened amateurs. Admiral Vex returned to collect his new human cannon fodder with all the satisfaction of a hunter who had successfully trapped easy prey. As the human soldiers boarded Zephyrian transport vessels, they maintained their act of wide-eyed primitives overwhelmed by advanced technology. Their apparent fear and confusion convinced the Zephyrian officers that these humans would be easily controlled and expendable in combat. The transport fleet departed Earth, carrying what the Zephyrians believed were 50,000 primitive warriors destined to die quickly in alien battles. In reality, they were carrying the most dangerous military force the galaxy had ever seen, carefully disguised and perfectly prepared to turn the tide of an 800-year war in ways that neither the Zephyrian Empire nor the Callus Federation could possibly imagine. As Earth shrank behind them, the human soldiers maintained their facade while secretly communicating through encrypted quantum channels. They were ready to show the galaxy what happened when you underestimated humanity. The sleeping giant was finally awake, and the thunder was about to begin. The thunder unleashed. The first deployment of human forces occurred on Kepler 442 bits, a contested world where Zephyrian and Callus forces had been locked in brutal trench warfare for 6 months. The planet's surface was scarred with massive craters from orbital bombardments, and the air itself was toxic from chemical weapons. It was exactly the kind of meat grinder where the Zephyrians expected their new human auxiliaries to die quickly and uselessly. Colonel Jake Morrison led the first human squad into battle, maintaining his act as a confused primitive even as his enhanced senses analyzed every aspect of the alien battlefield. His squad of 12 soldiers appeared nervous and unprepared to their Zephyrian commanders, but each was a master of warfare with decades of advanced tactical training. Humans, you will advance across the open ground and draw Callus fire, Captain Thex, their Zephyrian handler, ordered through his translator. This will allow our superior forces to flank their positions. Do not expect to survive, but die with honor for the Empire. Colonel Morrison nodded with apparent fear. Yes, sir. We'll do our best. What happened next became legend throughout the galaxy within hours. Instead of charging blindly across the killing field as expected, the human squad seemed to vanish into the landscape itself. Using techniques that no alien species had ever developed, they moved through the battlefield like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. Within 30 minutes, they had disabled 6 Callus heavy weapons positions, captured 3 enemy officers, and secured intelligence that the Zephyrians had been trying to obtain for months. But the real shock came when the captured Callus officers began talking to the humans instead of their Zephyrian captors. The Callus were shapeshifters who prided themselves on reading the true nature of other beings, and they immediately sensed something extraordinary about these supposed primitives. "You are not what you appear," whispered Commander Flux, a Callus intelligence officer whose silver form rippled with curiosity rather than fear. "Your minds are deeper than the void between stars. What are you really?" Colonel Morrison dropped his act for just a moment, allowing his true intelligence to show. "We're the species that's going to end this war. The question is whether you want to be part of the solution or part of the problem." Word of the humans' impossible success spread faster than their Zephyrian commanders could suppress it. Within a week, human squads were being deployed across 17 different battlefronts, and the impossible kept happening. Not only were they surviving encounters that should have killed them instantly, they were winning battles that seasoned alien veterans had considered unwinnable. The breakthrough came on Proxima Centauris, where a joint human squad encountered both Zephyrian and Callus forces in a 3-way battle. Instead of choosing sides, the humans did something that stunned both alien species. They stopped fighting and started talking. Sergeant Maria Santos, who spoke 17 languages including the complex harmonic communication of the Callus, stepped into the middle of the battlefield with her hands raised. "Stop shooting and listen to me," she called out in both alien languages. "This war has been going on for 800 years. How many more of your people have to die before you realize there has to be a better way?" For the first time in centuries, weapons fell silent as both sides stared at this human who dared to question the fundamental nature of their eternal conflict. What followed was an 8-hour negotiation that ended with something unprecedented. Former enemies working together to solve their actual problems instead of killing each other over ancient grievances. Back on Earth, Commander Sarah Chen watched the reports flooding in from across the galaxy with growing satisfaction. The sleeping giant protocol was working exactly as designed. Phase 2 was ready to begin. Dr. Webb, initiate the revelation. It's time to show them what we've really been building. Across the galaxy, every major military leader from both the Zephyrian Empire and Callus Federation received the same message simultaneously. The transmission came through channels that should have been impossible for primitive humans to access, encrypted with codes that would have taken their best computers centuries to break. The message was simple and delivered by Commander Chen herself. Admiral Vex, Supreme Commander Morpheus, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Coalition. We believe it's time for an honest conversation about ending this war. Please report to the Sol system for immediate negotiations. Come armed if it makes you feel safer. Admiral Vex was the first to respond, his 4 golden eyes blazing with fury as he assembled a battle fleet of 200 warships. These primitive humans dare to give orders to the Zephyrian Empire. We will show them the price of such arrogance. Supreme Commander Morpheus of the Callus Federation was equally enraged, his shape-shifting form cycling through expressions of pure contempt. Impudent creatures, we will demonstrate why no species challenges the Kalos without being eliminated. Both fleets converged on the Sol system simultaneously, expecting to find a helpless world defended by primitive spacecraft. Instead, they found something that changed their understanding of reality itself. Earth was no longer hiding. The asteroid belt had been transformed into a massive ring of defensive platforms, each one more advanced than the flagship vessels of either alien fleet. The moon had revealed itself to be partially hollow, its surface opening to expose manufacturing facilities that were already producing spacecraft using technology that neither empire had ever seen. But most shocking of all were the ships that rose from Earth itself. They were beautiful and terrible, sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around them, powered by engines that made no sound but somehow moved faster than anything in either alien fleet. There were thousands of them, and they moved with perfect coordination that spoke of a unified command structure beyond anything either empire had achieved. Admiral Vex found his voice first. Impossible. Our intelligence reports showed a primitive civilization. Commander Chen's response came from the lead Earth vessel, her voice calm and confident. Your intelligence saw exactly what we wanted you to see, Admiral. Earth has been preparing for galactic contact for over a century. We've been watching, learning, and building while you two spent 800 years destroying each other. Supreme Commander Morpheus shifted into his battle form, a configuration designed to intimidate enemies. You think your hidden technology makes you superior to civilizations that have ruled the galaxy for millennia. I think our technology combined with our understanding of cooperation makes us the solution you've both been looking for, Chen replied. We didn't reveal ourselves to conquer you. We revealed ourselves to save you from yourselves. What followed was the most unprecedented negotiation in galactic history. For the first time in 8 centuries, representatives from the Zephyrian Empire and Callus Federation sat at the same table without trying to kill each other. The mediator was a species they had considered primitive just weeks earlier, but who clearly possessed wisdom that had eluded both empires for generations. Commander Chen presented what she called the Unity Protocol, a framework for galactic governance based on cooperation rather than conquest, resource sharing instead of resource hoarding, and conflict resolution through communication rather than warfare. The concept was so foreign to both empires that it took days of explanation before they began to understand its implications. You propose that we share power? Admiral Vex asked, his crystalline armor reflecting his confusion. I propose that you increase power by sharing it, Chen explained patiently. Your empire controls roughly 40% of galactic resources. The Kalos control another 40%. You spend most of those resources fighting each other, leaving both of you weaker than you should be. Combine your resources, stop wasting them on warfare, and you'll both become stronger than either could be alone. Supreme Commander Morpheus rippled through several forms as he processed this concept. And what role would Earth play in this Unity Protocol? We would serve as mediators and protectors, Chen replied. Not rulers, but guardians of the peace. Our role would be to prevent conflicts before they start and resolve them quickly when they do occur. The negotiations continued for weeks, but the outcome was inevitable. Both empires were exhausted from centuries of warfare, their populations tired of sacrificing their children for a conflict that had no clear victory condition. The humans offered something that neither side had dared hope for, a way to end the war with honor for everyone involved. The signing of the Unity Accords took place on Earth, in a ceremony that was broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Admiral Vex and Supreme Commander Morpheus, sworn enemies for 8 centuries, stood side by side as they signed documents that would transform galactic civilization forever. The war that had raged for 800 years ended not with a final battle, but with a handshake between former enemies and the promise of a better future guided by the wisdom of Earth. Within a year, the changes were visible throughout the galaxy. Former battlefields became joint research stations. Refugee populations were resettled on garden worlds that had been off-limits during the war. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries reopened, bringing prosperity to species that had almost forgotten what peace looked like. And at the center of it all was Earth, no longer hiding its true nature. The blue planet had become the diplomatic heart of galactic civilization, a place where any species could bring their disputes and find fair resolution. The humans had proven that strength wasn't measured only in weapons and armor, but in the wisdom to know when not to fight and the courage to build bridges instead of walls. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo through the stars for generations. Never underestimate a species that chooses unity over division, cooperation over conquest, and wisdom over warfare. The thunder had spoken, and the universe was listening.